I am Annette Tonti, the Managing Director of RISUW. RISUW is your Rhode Island Innovation Hub. And what that means is we offer, at no cost to you, lots of different programs and ways to get connected to the entrepreneurial environment here in Rhode Island. That includes connecting you up with other organizations. We run venture mentoring service, which is Mia, actually, who's joining us here, Mia Nolan, runs venture mentoring, which is free ongoing mentoring from highly vetted and trained mentors. We offer onboarding programs to get to Mass Challenge, customer discovery, et cetera. So pretty much whatever you need. And we love to connect up folks in the ecosystem here for entrepreneurship. So thank you for joining us today. I have the honor of introducing Arnell Millhouse, who many of you might know. If you don't know him, he's actually, he's a founder of an entity here in Rhode Island called Career Devs, which is really a computer science institute of sorts. And basically what he does is he helps people that really might not have had the occasion or the ability to get formal training in technology. He trains them up and gets them into these six-figure salary jobs, which is amazing and astounding. And I say to him, you know, why isn't the President of the United States calling you every day? This is exactly the kind of program we all need. We need more of that here in Rhode Island. And I'm so thrilled and honored that I know him. He's also entrepreneur in residence at Brown University. He's been there for a number of years doing that. He is also the founder of Intra-City Geeks. He drives efforts in making sure he's delivering disruptive and customized education, utilizing artificial intelligence and disruptive methodologies. In Career Devs that I mentioned earlier, it guarantees that every graduate will launch a career as a software engineer. That's pretty amazing. You don't get that anywhere else. And so it's with great pleasure that I hand this over to Arnell, who's going to take us through the next hour of building on blockchain and what all of that means. So take it away, Arnell.
Thank you so much, Annette. Thank you, Mia. Thank you to RISUW and everything that you do there. And Annette, I particularly miss our last gathering that we had together down in Jamestown.
Yes.
We were able to swing our golf clubs. Annette,
I forgot
her
to
husband,
mention, he's a pretty good golfer.
I'm okay. I'm getting better. I'm getting better by the hour.
No, you're better than I am.
We need to come up with a blockchain application for my handicap. And
Yes.
I would feel really, really good after that. Hello, everyone. My name is Arnell Millhouse, and I am really, really excited to talk to you today about this topic of building on blockchain. So we're going to jump right into it. I'm so tempted. You were right, Mia. I'm tempted to admit every single person, but I'll leave that up to you guys. And today, I'm really excited to talk about this topic. You often hear about blockchain, but there really isn't a lot of in-depth information that helps you really understand where you need to go, what you need to do, and what the technology really even is. And I've had, especially leading up to this, nearly every person that I've spoken to in the past 2 weeks, I've asked them, what is blockchain? And I've probably talked to 100 different people, and I've received 500 different answers from 100 people. So it's really, really interesting to see how much misinformation, disinformation, and lack of information is out there. And today's talk is focusing on software engineers, technical co-founders, CTOs, and entrepreneurs. So if this is you, this is a great place to be. If you're a software architect or anywhere in this ecosystem of having a technical pin or badge on your lapel, this is the place. As Annette mentioned, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Career Devs Computer Science Institute. Hello to some of my students that I see out there in the audience. Welcome. It's great to see you guys. Why are you here? You should be in class. Class is taking place right now. You should be learning coding and blockchain. I've also been the entrepreneur in residence for Brown University for 2019 and 2020, which was a remarkable role. And it really served to influence a lot of what I'm going to talk about today, really blockchain development building from an entrepreneurial perspective. And I'm a board advisor member for the Pepito Opportunity Connection. POC is a foundation that is set aside through the generous heart of Barbara Pepito and her late husband, Ralph Pepito, $150 million to be invested into communities of color and underserved communities here in Rhode Island. And if you Google Arnell Millhouse, Boston Globe, or POC in the Providence Journal, you'll see a ton of news. And that's probably the thing that I'm most excited to be doing of late. It's just been an amazing, phenomenal time of change. And my introduction to technology came in high school. I fell in love with programming, coding, and everything that had to do with technology. And after graduating high school, I went to Johnson & Wales University, which is right over there, and graduated from there with business management and computer systems science degrees. And I went to go work for technology companies. And at this point, this was taking place during the late 90s and the early 2000s. And the dot-com era was in full swing. And I thought it was like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory for a geek. There was just nothing better than having a job in technology at that time. And just as I was really starting to get going, the bubble burst. The dot-com bubble burst. And, you know, with this inner entrepreneur within me, I always felt kind of sad when that bubble ended because I wanted to create a startup, and everyone was saying, this is it. You know, we're going back to the Stone Ages, computers, schmooters, it's over. So I thought I missed my opportunity. And that was really until 2011. At that time, I was, you know, like most people, dusting off the dot-com cobwebs and beginning to venture back into technology. And I began sneaking into Harvard University, into classes for free. Didn't pay for anything at all. I did this for about 6 months. And I called myself the Harvard drop-in. I had an official Harvard t-shirt and everything. I would go into classes and I would learn whatever I wanted to learn. And some of those conversations led me into amazing rooms and situations with venture capitalists and startup CEOs. And you could really see that there was a tremendous amount of energy culminating in building around technology once again. One of those conversations led me to MIT. And there was a group at MIT called the Bitcoin Mafia. And they had these monthly meetups. And I went to this meetup and it blew my mind. The conversations on blockchain, distributed ledger technology, and the impact that this technology could have on the world. And the best thing about it was that no one else was talking about it outside of Brown and Harvard and MIT. So I felt, this is it. This is my dot-com era chance all over again to get in at the grassroots level. And I did. And, you know, it felt like I had climbed Mount Olympus, and at the top, the wise old guru had one word to say, and it was blockchain. And also in the same year, 2011, Mark Andreessen, who famously created Netscape and Mosaic and is A16Z, one of the top venture capital companies in the world, wrote an article for the Wall Street Journal, Why Software is Eating the World. A lot of things were really bubbling up. In 2009, January 3rd, Satoshi Nakamoto minted the Genesis block for Bitcoin, and software was back. Technology was back. What I realize now is that the 1960s were the equivalent of the 2010s era, where things were just beginning to be formulated in terms of technology. But the great utility didn't come until the 1970s, when Silicon Valley began to explode with startups, giving birth to utility based upon technology. And that's what's happening now in the 2000s. We're at the era where we're truly going to build software that drives utility and purpose on blockchain. Will the world be rebuilt on blockchains? Well, Forbes wrote an article that said, the global Bitcoin computing power is now 256 times faster than the top 500 supercomputers combined. And what year was that in? 2013, I believe. Actually, I don't have control. Here's my mouse. Let me see that article down there. This article took place it was written in 2013. The computing power of blockchains combined now is exponentially faster than all of the supercomputers on this planet combined. And that's something that most people aren't talking about. That level of power and efficiency, and we haven't even yet scratched the surface of its potential. So the 2010s were alchemy. In 2020s, this is the era of science and utility application, bringing everything that we've been experimenting with over the past 10 years, 11 years, 12 years to fruition, to something useful. And now, why blockchains? Because the current solutions are fading. If you're a software engineer, if you're a CTO, all you have to do is look at the news and you see that corporate hacks and data breaches, something that I remember when the first corporate hack took place, maybe like 5 years ago, the CEO was fired. They ran him off the planet. I think he's the only person living on Mars right now. It was a major, major issue. Now there's a corporate data breach every 10 minutes of your personal information, your identity, your spending, your finances. Hundreds of millions of people are being affected each and every week. And no one's losing their jobs anymore because it's just the norm. Corporate and consumer fraud is on the rise. Credit card, corporate stimulus, unemployment fraud, all kinds of fraud. There are even kids with lemonade stands committing fraud now. That's how rampant it is. That's a joke. Where's me? I need a little when my jokes go over. My students are very, very well versed in my dry humor. But blockchain solutions, these things that we can build on blockchain are the answer to these antiquated and broken systems. The reason why you're seeing such a collapse is that we are equivalently trying to use the 1960s technology in the 1990s. Imagine the 1990s going back and using the 1960s technology. Well, that's what the world is doing right now. And that's the reason why we need new solutions and new tools. So what are the benefits? Trust. And we're going to talk in detail about especially this point right here, trust. Blockchain and the accompanying smart contracts get rid of trust. Right now, you have trust to use your Visa card because you trust Visa, or you trust your hospital, or you trust your mechanic. But blockchains are bringing about an era of transactions where trust is built in, and there are no individual parties or members to whom you have to give your trust. It's inherent in the system because it's decentralized and distributed. The security is built into blockchain because whatever data you want to secure, once it's put onto the ledger, it's immutable. It can never be changed. The cost of reduction by removing the middle players. Recently, was it El Salvador or San Salvador that switched over to Bitcoin made it Bitcoin legal tender. And they announced that they're going to save $500 million a year on financial transaction fees from the large companies. And it disintermediates, it empowers, and it's really going to push the power to the edges, to the third world and fourth world nations who are already converting over to blockchain-based currencies. And the speed of that is palpable. The visibility and traceability because of the immutability of the ledger, individual control of your data. We're still walking around with paper driver's licenses and vaccine cards, which if you lose it, it's gone and you have to go through this entire process over again. So our system, our world is really living on outdated technology. And the last point is also as important as the first, innovation. It's up to the software engineers to really think about how they can remake the world's current applications using this blockchain technology. And here are several slides that we're going to run through, and I'll make these slides available to anyone who wants access to them. just email Annette and Mia, and we'll get these over to you. But for capital markets, reducing barriers to issuance, peer-to-peer trading, faster, more transparent settlements and clearing, central banks, our governments are going to begin minting their own digital currencies. And think of the savings of, there's so many things that you can read about, the number of people that get sick by handling money, the weight that's transferred, that the cost of minting the coins and traveling, making currency go from point A to point B. And then decentralized finance here. Decentralization of everything is going to put the power into the hands of the people, because right now we have a consolidation of wealth. And this is an opportunity for software engineers to think about how they can deliver more value to customers. And you're going to see businesses disrupt these technical giants that have a lock and a hold on finances because they are the centralized gatekeepers. So decentralized finance is going to revolutionize the world. Digital identities, where a world where people will not be able to impersonate you because your identity is cryptographically secure. Energy and sustainability, finance, government and public sector. How inefficient is Congress and our government, our schools, our cities, our towns? If you want to incorporate a business, there are 1,000 places that you have to go and 10,000 forms of paperwork that you have to fill out. And blockchains are going to really simplify the health sciences, life sciences, insurance, law, media, entertainment, real estate, retail, fashion, luxury, social impact, sports, and esports. Supply chain management, syndicated loans, real estate. It's endless, the application that you as a software engineer or a CTO or as an entrepreneur can deliver value based upon this technology. Also, I'm not sure if you've noticed, but on the right-hand side of the slides, there's an airplane that shows you what level we are at. If we're at a very high level of conversation, and then as the airplane descends, that means we're getting more into the nitty-gritty. So you can follow that little icon on the side to know where we are. And there will be no water landings today. This graph shows two worlds. The old world is on the left with centralized systems where your trust is in the hands of very few. And the right-hand side, which is the new world that we're moving into, this distributed world where everyone has access to the same information, the same technology, the same security, the same assurances, and you can disintermediate, because in the old world, you would have to go from point A through a middle person to point Z. But now in this world here, we're all connected. Companies are investing billions in blockchain technology to make the transition and to be the first to innovate. Last year, LinkedIn came up with a list of the top most needed skills of all companies in the country. Blockchain was the #1 hard skill. The correlation for that is the top soft skill was creativity. They need people. They need software engineers who are creative, who can't just, you won't just rubber stamp the old system on top of blockchain, but that you'll think about the new ways in which you will be able to recreate this new world. And it's going to unlock massive valuations in startups. The startups in the next 10 years are going to make the unicorns of the past 10 years seem like seahorses, from unicorns to seahorses. Companies are in desperate need of blockchain software engineers. There are 500,000 blockchain jobs that are available that can't be filled right now. If you do a search on Google, you can see that I did a search for Providence, and there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of jobs that show up for Providence. They're Boston or they're remote. And even the jobs that are in Boston or in Providence are remote jobs. You can live anywhere for these jobs. And you'll see as we get into this a little bit later, this first slide shows us some of the technologies that they're looking for. Is there anyone out here skilled in Rust programming? Or down here, you have Golang, right? And some of the career dev students who are in the audience may remember when we brought the folks that were the Go organizers down to Rhode Island to do a Golang workshop over the weekend. This is several years back. This is for New York. Hundreds and hundreds. There are thousands and thousands of jobs in New York. San Francisco, the same. Anywhere, anywhere. Blockchain developers. And here I pulled out a few of these job ads to go in depth to look at what are they specifically interested in terms of software developers. You have this one here is a Golang job that we were referring to earlier. It's remote. They're looking for 4 years of back-end software development, experience using Golang. Again, look at that first word right there. Creative, independent, and hardworking, which we saw that correlated from 2020, but it hasn't gone away. If you're looking to build on blockchain as a software engineer, working on your creativity skills, creating your own personal portfolio projects, it's imperative that you do that. And they want you to work with blockchain distribution networks, DeFi. You'll see a lot of distributed requirements and decentralized finance requirements in this space, and not surprisingly. This one here, the blockchain developer web. 2 years of commercial software development experience. And that's not a lot. 2 years is not a lot of time to go into the jobs that are paying on average entry level $150,000 compared to the rest of the computer science industry, entry level $90,000. And Rust, Golang, Node.js, C++ are all the useful languages to have. Blockchain programming, smart contracts, which we'll talk about. Smart contract fundamentals, security, best practices, design patterns. Career devs, we talk a lot about these things here, so you guys should be really, really excited and happy. Here's Hyperledger. Annette, did you hear anything about Hyperledger today in the earlier session?
No, not enough.
Hyperledger is one of the IBM technologies.
Oh, there you go. Okay. They were pretty good about not overdoing the tech stuff. So
that's nice.
That's
but yeah, so here, that's why we're here, right? To get into the deeper bowels of what's happening there. So Hyperledger, chain code, OpenShift, Golang, cryptography, P2P, centralized, federated, decentralized experiences. Azure, AWS still is a thing. And here, more jobs, more technology, and I summarize it. So for blockchain skills, the concept of smart contracts, and some of the individuals on my team, my business co-founder at Career Devs and some of our employees, we've been working extensively with blockchain technology since like 2016, 2017. And it's not the easiest thing to do, especially the technology from 2015 to 2020. A lot of that was proof of work and it wasn't scalable. So now the world is being reborn. As you'll see, a lot of the blockchain technologies are moving away from proof of work. But smart contracts are at the heart of it. All those technology skills that you saw revolve around the concept of smart contracts. And so here are a list of 10 or so smart contracts and blockchain platforms: Arc, Corda, Ethereum, Cardano, EOS, Hyperledger, Lisk, Neo, Quantum, Stratus, and Waves, and their accompanying languages that you need to work with them. These are the languages that the blockchains themselves were written in. And these are the languages that support the smart contracts. And what's really, really interesting, if you look over here for the consensus, which is how the blockchains validate transactions, what is their consensus model? There's only one proof of work consensus mechanism, and that's Ethereum. And next year, as most people know, that Ethereum is already transitioning to Ethereum 2.0. If you went back just 4 years, this entire list, except for one, would be proof of work. So already the world was rushing toward one concept. And as anyone who's an entrepreneur knows, that no matter what direction your startup goes, you're probably going to pivot at some point. Maybe once, twice, thrice, 10 times, and continuing to pivot as your company grows. So the industry has moved from a proof of work consensus protocol to a proof of stake protocol. And what I want to do now is really have a time of discussion and conversation as we dive into more conversation around blockchain and building software applications on these platforms. So what we really wanted to do was to be able to concisely summarize the skills that you saw in all of the job applications, bring them all together. What's needed, what's necessary, and you'll see and notice that you're not far off. If you're a software engineer currently, whatever language or stack you're currently using can be used in one blockchain platform or another. The most common languages that you see: JavaScript, Java, Go, Python, C#, Plutus and Haskell. If anybody knows me personally, you know that I'm a huge fan of Cardano, and we run two of the only Cardano mining stake pools in the state of Rhode Island. Myself, Cliff, Sean Year, my business partner, and Marguerite Blair, who's also on this call. And so we've been really, really impressed by what they're doing with the entire Plutus development platform that they're building on top of Cardano. But I would love to really, at this point in time, take some time to go back. We can review some slides. We can go back to some items and have a discussion about where you are as a software engineer and how you can best make your transition. Again, I have employees and business partners that were, again, standalone software engineers, and we've made that transition over the past 5 years to the blockchain space. So we've done a lot of work in this space over a significant amount of time. We've seen languages and blockchains come and go, which has been interesting. So this part of the conversation, I didn't want to spend an hour going through slides, because I feel like the most interesting conversations I've had, and I've had several here in CIC, where we start off with a 10-minute conversation, and an hour and a half later, it's still continuing. And
hey, Arnell.
Yes.
We've got a couple questions coming up in the chat. So Brian wants to know what your opinion is on POS versus DPoS.
I believe that it's not a zero-sum game. What I've learned, and I've been now in technology, my first foray was working in 1989. I got my first start as a collegiate representative, technology representative for IBM, and a senior lab assistant at the Johnson Wales Academic Computing Department. And what I try to do with my company and my teams is not to become entrenched in ideology, but to focus on the problems that exist in the world and make sure that I'm outfitting the best solution that matches that particular problem. And you have people that are in this industry that are maximalists, that swear fealty and loyalty. I love Cardano, but we're also heavily investing in the Ethereum 2.0 push. So in terms of POS versus DPoS, I think there's going to be space for both of them in this world.
Anybody have other questions? I have a question real quick. So what's the deal with the energy usage thing in terms of like mining and like how much energy is being used and all that discussion about, wow, this is not eco-friendly at all. Is that something that's going to change, or is Cardano helping to fix some of that, or to somebody like myself who's a total novice here, by the way?
Yes, so this slide here references that. The energy drain is created by proof of work protocols,
okay,
and proof of work blockchains. That's when the energy drain, where people say, okay, Bitcoin is using the same amount of energy as all of Europe, right? Well, that's proof of work. And now the world, as you can see here, is moving to proof of stake and the delegated proof of stake. Who asked that question? That was Songsi, Brian. Brian was talking about the delegated proof of stake versus proof of stake. They're going, and I believe that there'll be even new innovations on top of delegated proof of stake and proof of stake. But Annette, your question is answered in the fact that, yes, the world is moving toward proof of stake protocols, which are, for instance, I know that with most proof of stake protocols, they're 1.6 million times more energy efficient than proof of work blockchains.
Okay, great. So Lissandro asked, do you think that completing bug bounties makes a good starting point in the field in terms of like building a resume?
100%. Any experience that you can gain is important. And these bug bounties, they're willing to take a flyer on you, where a company can't do that initially. And as you gain more and more skill and more talent, that will come through in your expertise and in your, most importantly, take the bug bounty experience and convert those into personal portfolio projects that you can show off to a prospective employer. In fact, the school that we run, Career Devs, our students come to us with no experience, and in 12 months, they're trusted by companies to, do software development and pull requests on their repositories. So, but what really holds true for us is that our students graduate with a portfolio that speaks for them, so that when they go in, they have 2 projects, 3 projects, 4 projects that are robust, not weekend version homework projects, but something that took 2 or 3 months to build. And so, yes, do the bounties and then convert the experience into a portfolio that will land you the job.
And then Toye asked, could a traditional marketplace be converted to a decentralized marketplace? Like, do you see any benefit for a company to have a decentralized marketplace?
Not for existing companies, because they're already beholden to their stockholders. They're beholden to their profitability plan. But for disruptive companies, those are the companies that are going to say, hey, you know what? And Jeff Bezos used to say this all the time: my competitor's profit is my opportunity. He would slice prices and steal the market. So I believe that a traditional marketplace won't convert, but I do believe that decentralized marketplaces will be born and disrupt those marketplaces. And you also see, once they reach some form of maturity, they'll probably be bought out and purchased by some of the larger players.
Excellent. And Victor asks, is the source code for all of the blockchains accessible to everyone to view in the same way that all the transactions on the chain are?
And the smart contract code is visible and publicly accessible. Now, you can hide some of the back-end components of that. But in terms of the smart contract technology, a lot of that smart contract technology is absolutely visible. And it's sort of like one of the things that Elon Musk did a few years ago. This is going back 4 years. Elon Musk took all of his patents that Tesla owned and made them public. And everyone said, why would you do that? Why would you take your technology that you've worked so hard to create and open source it? And it's greater creativity, greater competition. And as long as it forces you to stay on the cutting edge, and other people are doing it as well. So you get to learn from other people and continuing to innovate. I believe that this open source era is going to create an era of exponential growth and creativity. And so some people, and it's a change in the mindset. It's like a golf swing. Everything comes back to golf right now for me, Annette, by the way. Everything comes back to golf. It's a golf swing. It's not natural. It's not a natural way of thinking or even moving, but it works.
Exactly. So here's another question. Do you think there are plans to move Bitcoin from the proof of work to POS? And if so, what would happen to the mining companies out there?
So yeah, the miners don't want that to happen. They're happy with the way things are. Nothing is wrong. The world is great for them. Life is good. But there's something called the Lightning Network. It's a layer 2 implementation that will be implemented and run alongside Bitcoin. Think of it as a high occupancy vehicle lane on the highway, a HOV lane. When there's a lot of congestion, the Lightning Network, which is fast and energy efficient, looks to take a transaction from point A that would go to point B and say, instead of traversing the Bitcoin network, let it go over this network. And then we will complete it. We'll bring it back to its final destination point on the Bitcoin network. So, and to be honest, there have been several, if not dozens, of new versions of Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been improved and modified from having its small block sizes to its transaction speed. And every time the developers who are working within the Bitcoin community come with a new version 2.0 to improve it and say, hey, let's merge this with the master branch. The powers that be say, nope, don't touch it. And so what they end up doing is forking. That's when you've heard of Bitcoin forks, when there's now Bitcoin Cash, there's Bitcoin Gold, or this version of Bitcoin. And so there are new versions of Bitcoin that exist in the world that are fully accessible, that aren't being utilized because people want to keep Bitcoin as it is, as its store of value of sorts, potentially until it reaches somewhere north of $500,000 per coin to $1 million per coin. Then I think you'll probably see the world conducting business using Satoshis, which is a fractional amount of Bitcoin. But yeah, so there'll be improvements. And think of, this is the other thing in that. In 1969, the internet was born as the ARPANET, the Advanced Projects Research Agency. And it wasn't much to look at. There were only a few geeks in the world that could utilize it or understand it. It wasn't fast. You couldn't send a lot of data over it. Right. And it wasn't energy efficient. There weren't a lot of applications or utility on the ARPANET. Over time, however, some people saw the exponential potential in that ARPANET and said, this is going to change the world. So Bitcoin will ultimately evolve, as will a lot of the blockchain technologies that you see here on this screen. and it won't be anything like what we have today. In the same way that the 1960s mainframes couldn't be compared to the devices that we're now holding in our hands. So Bitcoin will mature at one point. I believe it has to, once it reaches a certain global level, because right now cryptocurrencies only make up, it's still a small portion of the world's global finance economy. And so we could go on. That's a really, really interesting topic in conversation with several tangents.
There's another question about open source. How will tech companies make a profit if they don't sell licensing for access to their intellectual property?
Services. Think of companies such as Red Hat. Red Hat makes a version of Linux, which is free, right? So there's a free version of this software called Red Hat, yet Red Hat is a billion-dollar corporation. They do provide services and consulting, and a lot of companies that utilize their technology hire their engineers to help them implement it. And the benefit is locked up within the minds of the people. The people are now the asset. Not, the software is an asset as well, intellectual property, but they're not the sole asset. And it's sort of like if you give me a golf club and you give Tiger Woods a golf club, I have access to the same. And in fact, I have this, I purchased, right? Internet, you can attest to this. I have the brand new TaylorMade Sim 2 Max line.
Yes.
Tiger Woods plays with those same clubs. And boy, the first day I went out there with this open source technology, I said, oh, it is so on. I have the same technology, the same patented clubs that Tiger Woods has.
Yeah, it's true.
Down the drain.
Different effect on that. So that's great.
People thought I was farming. They thought I was farming.
Well, it is gardening tools at one level. So yeah,
exactly. So that's the thing. The benefit over the next 10 years will go to the innovators, the people that utilize this open source technology the best. And it's going to create a new breed of individuals, people that are creative and that understand the technology the best.
Hey, so if you want to stop sharing, we could show everybody, we could have a conversation, maybe live if everyone's
awesome.
So here's I just wonder this might be crazy talking here. I wonder if there's some project, like, because I know some people just want to kind of get their hands dirty and start going on it. So here's the deal. We actually have free access to IBM's cloud, which means all of their blockchain capabilities. So we could leverage what IBM has, and we could do a community project with blockchain with some folks that are interested in getting, rolling up the sleeves. I'm just putting it out there, like it'd be something interesting to do. I don't know if anybody's got some thoughts or ideas about that.
I have an idea.
All right.
So the career devs, instructors, and teachers, and my business partner, Cliff, and our teachers here, Margie and Gabe. Can you guys wave, Margie and Gabe? Is Cliff on the line? No? And we would love to be able to, oh, my sister Kelly is here. Oh, I have to say hi to my sister. I love her. And we would love to help to coalesce the ideas around that and work with that IBM technology.
That'd be great. IBM would be into it. They would supply people to help train us. We could roll up our sleeves, do a whole project together. And maybe it's, let's put everybody in Rhode Island's vaccine card on the blockchain. I don't know. I'm making that up.
Right, exactly.
I mean,
and someone did mention that, speaking of Rhode Island, someone mentioned that Rhode Island is looking to be a major player in that. And absolutely, there's been.
We just talked about that at the last session. Yeah. Liz Tanner was there. Rhode Island wants to lead in terms of being sort of like, how, like, maybe you don't know this, but Delaware is known as the place when you go incorporate your business, because the rules at the state level are better than any other state to incorporate your business. So that's why you see so many, it's a Delaware corporation. Rhode Island would like to be the Delaware, what Delaware is to corporate structures, we'd like to be the blockchain. So it's up to us to figure that out. And we had Liz Tanner, who heads up. Actually, by the way, Rhode Island, our secret sauce here, our superpower is that we're small, and we can actually get to somebody like Liz Tanner, who runs for the state business policy. I mean, she's right there, and can do it and can help us figure out, how to get things done. So my point is, this is the group here that are the doers, those that actually want to roll out their sleeves and create be the creative and actually create the projects. And IBM would be willing to give it a platform to us for free to do it. So, just saying.
So what are the next steps for that then? How do people sign up for that?
Well, maybe we need a way to come up with some ideas. I'll certainly make the IBM thing happen. I think it would be really cool to come together as this kind of group to say, what project would we be interested in doing? I don't know. Yeah. Just throwing it out there, totally.
I love it. Is anyone else interested in that? Either use a reaction, put a reaction on your screen, or
you can unmute yourself and say something. You're allowed.
Type something in the chat.
I see Aaron, I see Brett, I see people going like this. That's great. All right. Thumbs up, Song Seed. Well, we know Brian, he's interested.
Gabe, does that sound interesting to you? Put a thumbs up out there. We want to grab some of those thumbs up. I want to get a screenshot.
Bianca, awesome. So, how about this? Maybe we need a collection place for ideas. And then I'll also connect up with Liz Tanner, the folks at the state, and say, do you have some ideas? This can be our little side hustle as a blockchain group or something, if anybody's interested. And by the way, the whole point is to get to that next level, actually get in, dig in, and actually do something. I don't know. It might be fun. I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Yeah, I'm in.
All right, we have the platform. So, all right.
And it's free access to IBM's cloud and all their blockchain tools.
Yes.
And so for people who are looking to get a job in this field, or at least test it out.
Yep. So I think one of the next steps is we will get together, RISUW will get together with IBM, and actually between now and the end of the year, like soon, which is, by the way, it's almost November, we'll put together a live session with IBM so that they can we'll roll up our sleeves and take us through the platform so that we can better understand it. Does that make some sense, Arnell? That's
amazing. Okay. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I think they'd love to do that.
We have everyone's email, right? So we can just reach out, and then if you're in, just respond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do have everyone's email.
Perfect.
Okay, good. Well, we'll make that happen. Let's just get it going.
Great.
All right.
And I think that's...
Anybody have any other questions for Arnell?
Oh, I will do this. If anyone is interested in becoming a software engineer, I put a link there to the Career Devs website, and we are going to be rolling out a blockchain pathway within the next 4 to 6 months, where you have a place to go. Because right now, a lot of blockchain learning is on your own and scrapping together, meeting up with people in dark alleys, which isn't so safe. So we want to make a nice, safe way for people to become blockchain engineers. Stay away from those alleys and visit Career Devs and enroll. And you'll be invited to come out to an orientation, and we'll get together and get geeky with it.
I like that. Okay, I see some thumbs up. That's awesome.
Yes.
And if anybody has any, okay, so hold on. Lysandro says, it always felt like blockchain and the future of blockchain as a technology was something confined to obscure places on the internet and forums and YouTube channels. I agree with you. Great to see it's in real life in the smallest state of all places. And you cleared some things up for me today, Arnell, when you listed out, look, the actual languages are ones we already know. Mm-hmm. We're talking JavaScript, et cetera. So that's not so murky.
Correct.
I always, my head goes to what about the data? Is the data treated any differently when I'm on the blockchain? Is that, we know the data and that whole ability to trust the data is really at the core of this.
Yeah, so that's an interesting topic right there. You don't want all of the data on the blockchain. You could overwhelm the world's network. Imagine how much information traverses the internet today. If we try to put that all on the blockchain, it would literally overwhelm any network. So you have to figure out what data is important to become immutable and what data is ancillary, right? It's like the items in the kitchen that you use to cook with. There's some items that you're going to use for your food, but then there's some things that aren't going to end up on the actual plate itself. And that's where the creative minds have to come together in understanding how to cook this meal. Right. So
yeah. So in other words, Waze, if I'm driving down the road, is collecting every second of every moment where my car is. We don't want all that on the blockchain.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah. That makes sense to me.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's a big clear up for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And and there's so much more that we could dive into in terms of that data. So here's something that's also interesting about blockchains that you should be aware of. That currently blockchains are bunkers. They're self-contained bunkers that cannot accept real-time information.
Oh.
And so because of that, you have companies that are like Chainlink, for instance, is probably the most popular company that's creating something called oracles. And an oracle is a trusted source that receives information from the real world and brings it to your blockchain. It verifies it, and then it delivers it to your blockchain. Because let's say you have a blockchain application that wants to check the price of a stock. Now, every blockchain transaction has to be verified by multiple servers, multiple blockchain mining servers. Each blockchain, if they were connected to the internet, would get a different price because prices fluctuate, every fraction of a second? Mm-hmm. And so if it says, okay, if the price is X, then we will sell the stock.
Right.
But each transaction has to be validated by 5, 10, 15, sometimes 20 other servers for consensus to be reached. So what happens is, if each server is receiving different data, they can't reach consensus on what the price is. 1 second, it could be below the price of selling. Another second could be above the price of selling. So these oracles, such as Chainlink, are setting up servers to receive data from the outside or a request for data. They will get the data and then deliver it to the blockchain. It's a major issue with blockchain technology right now. The way that they validate information prevents them from accepting real-time data at large. And so you can Google blockchain oracles, and it's a very, very interesting topic and something that's being worked out by companies. Wolfram Alpha is working on an oracle technology and several others. Now, someone has a question. When you say that they can't accept real-time data, do you mean that they can't be updated once they're created? So once something is put on the blockchain, it's never updated. It's immutable. It's part of that sedimentary fossilized layer. Think of each blockchain as a layer in the fossil record. You can't go back down and modify the genetic structure of the dinosaurs. And it's the same way with the data. Once it's put on the blockchain, it's not changed. And the blockchain is there to authenticate a transaction and to store it on to the next one. So yes, they are not updated, but more specifically, what we're talking about here is the way information changes and is random. Random information is kryptonite to a blockchain, because a blockchain seeks to receive consensus by validating that something is true and it's the same by multiple servers that validate. And if that data is in flux, real time, it's tough to get a beat on everyone getting the same price or the same information. So that's why the Oracle will grab that data from the outside world and deliver it to a particular blockchain. So really interesting stuff.
That makes sense.
What is your advice to an entrepreneur that has the idea to implement these technology, but isn't necessarily a software engineer or doesn't know advanced coding to actually design the system? That's the conundrum. The technical co-founder is, at Brown University, where I was an entrepreneur in residence, there were, I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs, and I'm working with one startup right now that's looking for a technical co-founder. So I would say, roll up your sleeves and at least begin doing some of that. And then the other thing is begin hanging out in the same places that all the geeks hang out. Because the best co-founders are people that are friends, that have a relationship, not someone that you meet in a dark alley saying, "Hey, are you into blockchain?" Right? They rarely ever work out. Most startups that have founders that just come together, they've met, and it's like relationships as well, right? Relationships work best with people that you get to know. So get to know people over time, and also validate your idea. If you can really validate that there is demand for your idea, that your idea is a solution that solves a problem. And this is the last thing I'll say is that, so two things that I've really taken away from my entrepreneurial experiences over the past 5 years. Number one is secrets. Venture capitalists, they'll listen to your pitch, but inside they're really hoping that you're going to say, "We've created this company and we figured something out that is so mind-blowing. And the people that we've shown it to, they're losing their minds over it, and no one else is doing it." And to get that secret, you have to spend time observing your customers and observing the problem that you're trying to solve. Everyone, it's like in class, coming up with an answer. If you have an answer that's really quick, you haven't spent enough time really marinating on it. So if you do that, then you're spending time with the right customers, with the right people, talking about the problem enough. That's going to find that you will end up in the right rooms with the right people who want to help you build that. I can guarantee you that. Are there any online geek hangouts that you can recommend? CareerDevs.com. We're always hanging out together. We're always in our Slack meetings and Slack meetups and doing some geeky things. But publicly,
there's a blockchain meetup. There's a Rhode Island blockchain and a Boston blockchain. And I can tell you that the people at the top of that in Boston, the Rhode Island one sort of goes underneath the Boston one, meaning they're a lot of the same people. A lot of activity with the Boston and Rhode Island blockchain meetup.
Yes, and I'll type a website up here. So meetup.com is a great place for that.
Yep.
In fact, Career Devs, we used to run Providence Code Night with the mayor. We started doing that in 2015. We had the number one, once a month, people would come out and hang out. We'd have 15 people, 10 people, 50 people. And we'd have a different coding topic, computer science topic every month. So, yeah. All right.
Well, we can't thank you enough, Arnell. This has been really fantastic. I'm most excited about all of you as well as Arnell, all of you being here, because I think this is just the seed today of what we might do as a community, let's grow one here to, a community of blockchain enthusiasts. And maybe there's a project we can do. I know for sure we can get IBM signed up to give us, some time. So
that'd be wonderful.
That'd be cool.
Thank you, Annette. Thank you, Mia. And really thank you to everybody else here as well that came out. And I really enjoyed this, and hopefully you did as well.